Welcome to another episode of Reseller Evolution. I'm Scott.
And I'm Carl.
And this is podcast number 11.
Woo! Number 11.
Number 11. We're climbing. We'll talk a little bit about the week here, but I just want to let the audience know that the topic this week is going to be yard sales. All sorts of things, things about yard sales, from negotiation to everything. Anything that there is about yard sales, we're going to discuss it today. And yes. I know that's your favorite, Carl.
Oh, man, I hate garage sales. But I get it. It was funny. I was just talking to someone just last night, and the first thing they said was like, I hate garage sales. So
really?
We're not all in love with getting up early, but I know we won't digress. We won't digress already. Okay. Positivity is where we're going to go. Just as opposed to last week, we're going to be positive this week, right?
Well, I think this could be a very interesting show because I think yard sales are my most favorite. So I think we're going to be able to to be the yin and yang of the yard sales episode. So, okay, let's start off this way. Carl, how was your week?
Oh, the week was fun. Sales has been hopping still. I got rid of, I think, my last guitar I put up. So a lot of my really good, expensive stuff has gone out of my deaths pile. So now I'm like going through some of the older, like the little toys, and just seeing what's worth loading up and stuff like that. And I went to a flea market about an hour away from Ottawa, and that was fun. I actually was able to pick a couple items to resell. So I pulled an Adam and went to the flea market to buy from other resellers to rebuy. So I picked up a couple of digital cameras. The other thing that's happened is I decided to close down my little booth at the Nostalgia Warehouse. Like, I really enjoyed it, and I really like going to see the owner there, the person who's running it, and all that. But since I'm like a kind of like sell everything seller, I found I wasn't getting enough stuff that was appropriate for the store. And so I was always worried about, like, what am I going to put in the booth? What am I going to put in the booth? And it just honestly wasn't something I can maintain. And I kind of had a feeling for that when I started, but you know what I did get was a taste for it.
Yeah.
I do like having a booth, and I think it definitely has a role to fulfill, especially for items I don't want to ship, or some of the cheaper stuff that's still worth selling, but not in this particular venue because it's too specialized to toys. So that, bittersweet, but I think it's the right decision.
Yeah. Now I can understand that because you're competing for a few dollars against many people. Where I think also is, if you're going to do this again, like at a different venue, maybe go for a little bit larger, even though you're going to have a little bit more on the rent side.
Yeah.
A larger booth really makes a huge difference. And I would even go as far as saying, do a 10 by 10 at minimum, and make sure you got product before you do this to fill it up, but do a 10 by 10 at minimum.
Yeah, no, I agree. One of the frustrations I had was the fact that it was such a small area, like a one glass case, was that I was kind of like taking one thing out and putting a different thing in. So there's like swapping going on.
Yeah.
And it wasn't the best way to really sell or spend my time, to be honest. So
it's kind of counterproductive. It's because you don't know when that person's going to come in for those items. So you might take it out. That person comes in, they're not interested in what you put in, but they might be interested in what you took out. So now you've missed that sale. And you know what I mean? It's just you're creating your own worst enemy in a way.
Oh, I know 100% that's happened, because the owner told me, where did you put that stuff? It's like, I took that home, put something else in there.
Right.
He said, well, someone came in looking for that specifically. Well,
because I can't remember how many times I'm thinking, man, this has been sitting here for 6 months or a year. I'm going to take this home. And then all of a sudden I'm like, well, I'll leave it here for another week because I got nothing really to put in that spot. So it might as well stay there.
Yeah.
I'll bring something in next week, and then it's sold.
Yeah.
And it really plays on your mind, because now you're like, well, do I take anything out? Like, you just don't know. Right. So
yeah, I found that hard. And also with the fact that, what do I sell in the booth versus online? Because in the booth, I want to sell the lower value stuff because it's not worth shipping that stuff online. But that stuff really didn't pay for the booth rent.
Yeah.
So it just didn't make sense. But hey, that's the way it is. How was your week?
My week was fantastic. eBay was great. The booth has been absolutely staying way above expectations. And not just me, I've been talking to other vendors.
Yep.
One vendor who's been doing this for a very long time, and he even said he's wondering if the antique market is starting to kind of go on a little bit of an uptick. Like, is it back? And he was comparing it to previous years that I wasn't even doing this, so I can't really relate to those years. But he just seems to be very optimistic on how much is selling right now. So,
You know what's funny is I was talking to someone yesterday, my friend John, who has a booth in nearby in Elmont, and every time I see him, he says getting better and better and better his sales at his booth as well.
yeah, and Ken, who is a regular viewer of the Sunday night show, he's now part owner of an antique store.
Yeah, and he went from like shutting his down to owning a place.
Yeah, he went
So
and moved to
maybe my
another
next
place.
next thing is to own a place. See, I shut it down, and now I got to buy a place, right?
Yeah, I don't know. That's not in the cards right now because I don't know if I want to be tied down that much, and
No.
maybe it's less work. I don't know. It has crossed paths, and we've been talked to about it in the past, but
Yeah.
but he's up by Barrie, and he says the sales are fantastic. So I think across the board, I mean, you look at auctions, you look at uh, just any like I hate to kind of say this because I've heard other people say things are bad in certain areas. I haven't experienced that. That's
No.
just kind of hearsay. But I don't know. Let's just put it this way: things look very optimistic right now as far as antiques. There
Yep.
seems to be like Adam was in this online auction, and a Hoosier cabinet went for $14,000. I sell them for around $500-600. Now
Wow.
this might have been a special one, but that's a huge difference. You know what I
Adam
mean?
should buy it, and then he can flip it on this auction, and then we can talk about it on the Sunday night show.
Oh no, it was an auction. It was the auction that it sold. Like it sold for that high in auction. But I mean, that goes to show you that anytime that two people with deep pockets want something,
Yeah.
you just never know what it's going to go for, right? But
Yeah, I find sales online have been great too. So it's funny. Maybe it depends on everyone's week how they're doing and how they think the market's going. But for me, it's been going well. So yeah, that's great.
yeah, I sold two 1870s picturesque America books, $400 on
Like
eBay.
that. Yeah.
And that's just free money because that whole book thing, like I still got lots of books, but I made my money like right away. I made my money back in profit, and so that was nice. I've sold a few more books on eBay,
Yeah.
and I mean, without going into too much detail, it's been a really good week. So
Oh, that's good. And how are we going to fill these cabinets and these online stores this summer?
how are we going to fill it?
Come on, I'm throwing you a softball here. Like, dude.
Well, no, the operative word there is we. I know how I'll fill it. I'll
Nice
fill it through
save.
yard
Nice
sales.
save. So, yes.
You had me a little confused because you're not a big yard sale guy.
Well, my first question is, what's the difference between a garage sale, a yard sale, a community sale, and a car boot sale? Like,
Well, a yard sale is on the yard, a garage sale is in the garage, a boot sale is in a boot, and a community sale is in the community center.
Oh wow, there you go. It's all
No.
solved. Hey, thanks.
Yeah,
Scott.
I don't know.
Really appreciate your knowledge and
I think the garage sale and yard sale is basically depending on what sign you buy at Canadian Tire to put on your front yard.
oh, there you go.
That's all that it really is the difference.
Man.
If you don't have a garage, you're probably calling it a yard sale. But no, there's really no difference there. The boot sale to me is usually it's people who are vendors or resellers to some degree. Maybe they're offloading some product, and they usually have a little group that gets together and they call it selling out of the trunk of their car. But usually, they'll have tables or they'll have items set around the vehicles and stuff like that. But they'll probably have permission from a certain property owner, and they'll do that. And what was the other? The community sale. The
Community
community
sale.
sale is a certain uh, parameter of a community or a small town or a section of a large city. And they'll kind of just agree to have a yard sale at this point in time. Not everyone's involved in it, but you're usually can go to those things. There's pros and cons. You can usually go to those things because you can hit numerous yard sales at one time, either by walking or, driving, couple house each time, just inching further and further along. The downfall is if the community seems to have quite a bit of them every year, a lot of the good stuff can get thinned out.
Right. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to first, just so everyone's clear, I hate them. I hate it, but I will acknowledge that one of the best ways to source is from garage sales. And so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some of our tricks and tips for doing garage sales. See, Scotty has a smile on his face because he knows how much I hate this stuff.
Well, I it's not so much you hate it. I think you just had bad experiences, and it brings a smile to my face, but it also brings a little bit of pain to hear some of your stories, Carl.
I know which one you're talking about. Yeah.
Well, there's a few. I mean, almost right off the bat, it's about your lack of ability to find them where you live. Like you're having to go quite a distance really to find the good stuff.
We're going to talk about planning ahead here, I guess. That's what you're getting to. So I guess the first part of like planning ahead is, where do you find out about these garage sales? Now, I'm going to just give one place I look at on Facebook Marketplace. I find a lot of people are now posting there. Kijiji, that also seems to be a place where people are still using, which is owned by eBay, by the way. And a lot of people put the garage sales there. How about you? Where do you like figure out where are you going to go? Like where?
Okay, so what I do is I go to an online site, which really I'll type it in and it pushes me to their Facebook. So it's on Facebook.
Yeah.
But they talk about all the townwides in Southern Ontario. So it's out of your area.
Yeah.
But you probably have one similar in your area. You just have to kind of Google search it and try to find it.
Right.
So then I'll have an idea of throughout the entire summer, well, really spring, summer, and fall, all the town wides.
And wow. So you planted it all for the whole year.
Yeah. So some weekends you're going to have 10 or 15 town wide. So you can only pick one or two. So I might put, if there's a favorite one, I'm going to go there first, and I'll try to find ones that maybe I can kind of circle my way back or hit on the way home. And I kind of have an idea each month what's going to happen there. Every Saturday, it's yard sales. So
every Saturday.
And
how far out will you drive to hit let's say a community garage sale? Not just, obviously you're not going to hit one garage sale an hour out, but
I would say 90% of the time I'm with an hour or less, and it's usually quite a bit less. Like it could be 10-15 minutes away to half an hour away, but I have frequently driven an hour away. Okay. Now there has been occasion where I've gone up to like 2 hours or an hour and a half to hit certain town wides.
Oh, really?
Yes. Now, like for instance, sometimes on a long weekend, you'll have your Saturday yard sales, right? So I'll try to hit more local there, but then very few and far between, but there is some that have Monday only garage sales because it's a holiday Monday. So because there's nothing else. Yeah. So there's nothing else going on that day. I will drive a couple hours just to get to that one town wide, which is only on the Monday, because there's nothing else really around.
I must admit, I don't think I've ever noticed them at least Monday. I know like sometimes people have them Fridays, which I always thought was really weird too. I think that might be more common in some areas, the Friday garage sale.
The Fridays can happen in two different ways. It can happen just locally, or if you go to communities, townwides, a lot of people start setting up on the Friday evening. So I will even go there Friday evening and try to kind of be the early bird by kind of like, hey, I see you're setting up here. I'm just driving by. Do you mind if I take a look? I won't be around tomorrow, which is a total lie. But
oh no, dishonesty is already starting to come out.
yeah, but
people
you
actually
have
set
to.
up on
You try
Friday
to.
for Saturday morning.
What's that?
People set up on Friday for Saturday morning.
Oh yeah, for sure, for
that's
sure.
weird.
And some people will even be. They'll do a 2-day yard sale if it's a long weekend. Fridays is very common, and they'll do Friday and Saturday and Sunday, and maybe even Monday. Like some people really, they kind of invest their whole weekend to sell their stuff, right?
So you've said how far you go, and like for me, I would do like an hour at most for a community garage sale. I think. I guess the question, and where I look is the same place you do online, obviously, Kijiji, Facebook Marketplace. There might be groups wherever the listener is. Like, I think the other question is how do you decide which one to go to? Like,
honestly, I try to judge it kind of like there's no real hardcore set of rules, so I will break this from time to time. But mostly, I want an older, smaller town.
So when you mean older, what are you talking here?
Like just like not a modern, like not a community where 10 years ago they built this community in the middle of nowhere type thing, or it's a suburb off of London or Mississauga or something. Like those I'd stay away from. But like an old town that's probably been around for 100 or 200 years or 150 years, whatever. Based them around maybe there was a train stop there or something, like who knows, right? Like So my area is old, so we have like Port Dover, we have Delhi, we have like Port Rowan. There's a lot of little smaller communities that are older, all kind of lake based, relatively close to the lake or on the lake. So a lot of communities settled in those type of areas, right? So, and this is a big farming area, so we have a lot of smaller communities just kind of based on farming. So
yeah, and around here it's like it'd be hard. It's not like there weren't people around back then. There just weren't a lot of people around back then. So for me, you know what I mean? It's like it was all farms, right? Like, so like 1980s, like houses like that. That's kind of like, it's funny, but that's already like 50 years old, right? 1980s house. So
yeah, that to me is not old. Like, I mean, I would still hit that community for sure because they're going to have kind of nostalgic stuff. But if you want the real antique stuff, like you're going into like a small older town, if you drove through it, some of the houses might even look poverty kind of like looking. Right. I hate to say that, but there's not going to be all poverty kind of homes. But I'm saying you're going to see some homes that are really like back in the 19 kind of 40s kind of. Do you question whether they even have running water? You know what I mean? Like
those are the places I drive by and I wonder, is there someone actually living in that house?
No, 100%. But for the most part, and they're kind of living off the grid. They probably have a wood stove. They might not have a running water. Like who really knows, right? Like,
see, this is really interesting to me. This is really interesting to me because that's where I would avoid in the past. But I'm wondering if I've been avoiding the treasures and going to the garbage, and maybe that's why I'm so bitter and angry. Because
well, see, like for the most part, those type of people aren't going to have their yard sales. But in that community is where you're going to find the older people that, like the people that are having yard sales, they're going to have stuff that is older. It just tends to be that way. Local churches, a lot of people will donate to those old churches in those small towns, right?
Yeah.
So they might have some really good stuff because people just want to help out the church. So they'll just, hey, this is sitting in my basement. We're just going to throw this box here, right? It might, this is grandpa's from, 19, I don't know, 1925, 30. So here's 2 boxes, says grandpa on them. You know what I mean? So that's the stuff I like to find.
Well, you've
So,
inspired me. I should go out to these places. So, can I?
dude, that 100%, 100%.
So when should I roll into these places? Like 9, 10, 11 a.m.?
Well, if you're going to the place I'm going to, that's exactly when I would say to go. But if you're not my competition, I would say, listen,
Right.
most when I first started, most yard sales seemed to start at 7 o'clock for whatever reason, especially kind of after the pandemic.
Yeah.
Most of them are now 8 o'clock.
Oh, thank God.
Yeah. So, but what I do is I still get there for 7 o'clock. And if I see a lot of people kind of saying, like maybe in Facebook, that they're starting at 7, I'm getting there like quarter to 7, maybe even 6:30, and driving by 1,000 times until they start bringing stuff out. Now, when I say that, I sound very aggressive, but I'm very respectful. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, apart from the dishonesty thing you just did like 5 minutes ago.
yeah, but that's harmless. That's like,
Oh, right. Oh, okay.
right.
Just
So,
putting a base level of what is.
yeah, right, exactly. Right. It's so what I think the early bird gets the worm.
Yeah.
So if the community yard sale advertises that we're starting at 8 o'clock, why do I get there at 7? Because there's going to be people who set up at 7, right?
Right.
So I want to hit those people, and then I'm already done with those yard sales. And as people start coming out between 7:30, 8, and 8:30, I'm strategically trying to hit those ones. You know what I mean?
So when you're planning on, like, say you go on Facebook Marketplace and you see a bunch of places starting at 8, do you make a little map and say, okay, I'm going to drive to this spot and drive along here? Like, how do you do that planning? Because that one I've tried to do, like here where I am, I'm in the suburbs, and a lot of it was built in the 90s
Yeah.
and maybe some 80s, and obviously, and what I do is go along the main, because it's a suburb. It's not straight roads; it's all that round, windy stuff. So I just try to find a main road and hopefully look for signs off of that. But it doesn't feel very efficient. It feels like I'm missing a lot.
So again, I'm going to vary slightly, but for the
Right.
most part, if I'm going to hit a community town wide, I just completely go directly there. Right. If I see other, like, let's just say I go on to that weekend and I see this Saturday there's 10 community yard sales. I'm going to find out, okay, this is a town I want to hit because I have really good luck there. And then
Yeah.
I'll map out on the way home maybe other communities I can hit based on that. And I'll also I'll drive by and I'll see yard sale signs as I'm driving from community to community. But for the most part, to be honest with you,
Yeah.
I if I start at 7, I am done by 9.
Oh, wow.
Maybe 10 if it's a really good community yard sale and I'm just like inundated with a lot of good stuff that's taking my time.
Yeah.
So I'm quickly in and out. Like, so by 9 o'clock, more people start rolling in, and I want to be out before that crowd hits.
That's me.
Yeah, you're coming in at 9 o'clock. I've already got the gold, man. I've already got it. But
So are you heading home at 9 or 10, or are you just
yeah, so I'm on my way home, but I'm willing absolutely 100% to stop along the way. Because the other thing is, as I'm driving home, I'm going to hit yard sales that aren't part of a community that might have only had 5 people stop because they're in the middle of nowhere on a rural road. You know what I mean?
So these are rural garage sales you're kind of talking about too. Because like for me, it's mostly always just a house.
So I'm talking about smaller towns.
Right. Okay.
Right. But you could, if it's a lot, like say London's probably an hour and 15 minutes from here. So if there's a section of London, I will also, and I don't go there much, but if it's an older part of London, I will definitely consider it and have gone. So once I'm done that community yard sale, I'll start making my way home. Either I've mapped smaller towns that's all like on the way because I live in a rural area. So to get here, you're going through rural areas. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So as I'm coming from London, I might, instead of taking the 401 where you're not going to have any yard sales, I might take Highway 3, which is
right
a 2-lane kind of goes through the rural, but it's considered a highway. And I'll look for signs that might veer me like 2 miles this way or 2 kilometers this way. they have an arrow pointing down a side road saying yard sale.
So do you feel you really know these small little towns already? Like,
I know a few of them.
yeah.
Like there's ones that I'm going to hit for sure every year,
Mhm.
100%. Like, I mean, it's not like I know the people or anything like that, but
No, no, no.
I'll know where the Tim Hortons is. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, right. Of course, the important bits.
So, but yeah, I don't know. There's quite a few that just pop in my mind that I'm going to hit every single year for sure.
Yeah.
But I've been doing this for 8 years, so I've really kind of I got a good grasp on what I'm looking for and where I might find that.
Yeah, and, like, to be clear, like,
And I'll be quite honest with you, Carl.
yeah.
Just this area on any given Saturday is probably going to have from 10 on the low end, but it could have to 20 to 30 just on any given Saturday by hitting 3 or 4. Like, first of all, you got Simcoe, and then you got little offshoots, which Port Dover's 10 minutes away, Waterford's 10 minutes away, Delhi is about 15 minutes away. So I can hit all those on just any Saturday and still find really good stuff. And it's not even a community yard sale. It's just the way the landscape is set up with little towns kind of within close proximity. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, like, I complain, but I often find once I'm up by 7 AM and I'm out there and driving around, it actually feels kinda good because it feels like I gain more of my day. Uh,
Yeah, and you can always
like,
nap.
usually when I complain, it's because, like, I'm driving around. I'm sure this has happened to everyone. You see the sign for the garage sale, you go down the street, and there's no more signs because the garage sale was the week before.
I find that happens in the city quite a
In the
bit.
city.
Like if I go to Brantford, like say there's real, like every now and then there might be 3 Saturdays throughout the year that there's no town wides, or they're just too far and I've been there before and I never had any luck, so I'm going to decide to stay locally. If I go to like Brantford, which is kind of basically it's a city. It's
Right.
you know, probably 150,000 residents to 200,000 type thing. So I find those areas can be very good, but you're also getting misled with a lot of signs that's been posted forever. You know what I mean?
They never took them down.
They never took them down.
Or sometimes I find in the city here in where I am in Ottawa, there's people who have garage sale every weekend, and I now recognize that address because basically they're just like, I'm gonna sell all my crap every weekend, and they always trick me. And I go down that street, it's like, oh, this damn house again.
I know.
That
I've
just
also
happens too
I
often.
felt like putting up a sign like say take your
Warning.
garage sale sign down. But usually too, I think a lot of times I think it's the
Yeah,
people are moving, so they might have moved. You know what I mean? So they don't care.
I
Right.
guess.
Right. I've had that before too,
Yeah, it's
where
possible.
the house has got a sold sign on it. There's no cars or anything in the garage or the driveway. So I'm like, oh, these buggers have moved. So that sign's going to be there forever. You know what I mean? So
Thankfully, that doesn't happen too often.
yeah, but I don't find it around here to be an issue, but when I go to a city, I see that quite a bit. Yeah.
So another thing I like to do when I'm before I complaining to Scotty in the morning about having to get up is I make sure I have, like, I know this is simple, but make sure you have lots of change and cash, because there's nothing worse than when you go to buy an item and it's like $4 and they don't have change and they have to go inside the house and you're sitting there for like 5 minutes during the golden hour waiting for them to get change. I always make sure I have lots of quarters, lots of loonies, toonies, small bills, because there's nothing worse than that wait. I think that's a very simple tip, but one that I've benefited from a bit.
I'm going to add to that a little bit, Carl.
Yeah.
So because I have the antique booths, because I like to buy large bulk buys rather than just single 1 or 2 items, like I will take at least $1,000, sometimes more, small bills, but then maybe 500 and 50s and 100s, and be prepared to do big bulk purchases because you never know when you're going to get invited into a house. And the last thing you want to do is be running to a machine after putting everything up there. And then when you come back, I wonder if they took something. He kind of really liked a couple items and you've already got it in boxes and stuff. And it's like, you know what I mean? So
You don't want
You've
people to change
negotiated
their
on
minds.
what's that?
You don't want someone to change their mind when you go to the cash machine, or even
Well,
worse,
that's
you
true
you
too.
don't want to say I'm going to buy it, then someone else comes along and has cash in hand,
Or
and you go
or
back and say, "Oh, sorry, I sold it."
yeah, or somebody picks out of the pile because they don't really care. They've already sold it, so you've got a
Yeah,
pile over here.
it's
You've
just
negotiated,
menacing.
and then somebody else came along and they like something you got, so they just grab it and buy it. So
Yeah,
you just never want to get into that questioning thing. So I would always say to have a lot of cash. It's going to make things quicker.
yeah,
And so I clear out my truck the night before. I make sure I have all my cash on hand
uh-huh,
and a full tank of gas.
uh-huh.
And all I have to do is go to Timmy's and grab a coffee, and I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
But also, just keep in mind you want to kind of go early because like Timmy's lineup can be pretty big too if you're not careful,
Or
right?
or you could just make your coffee at home like I am, because I'm a cheap ass. I'm like,
I like my coffee, so
that's you're allowed to have that one little
yeah. I
perk.
got to keep my coffee in my truck. Everything else is fine. I can negotiate the rest of it. Most
I
people
also
don't.
have a lot of cash.
And my little dog. I want to keep my little dog.
You want a little dog? Yes, my little cat for me. But yeah, I have cash as well. I might not have it in my wallet. I might leave it in the center console, just so when I open my wallet and then like well, technically, if I had negotiated, I don't want to. I don't know. I want it nearby, but I don't want it in my wallet, which is kind of funny. But
Yeah, I mean, it works both ways. I don't mind them seeing what I have in my wallet. You know,
yeah, 'cause that's a technique I heard, flashing the cash. Like,
well, I don't really flash it in like on purpose or anything, but
no.
like if they once I pay for that, I'm just like I got a little bit of cash here. If you got anything else, you know what I mean. If you got something, if you got maybe stuff in the garage or something, I said I'm looking for old stuff, and I'm usually looking for stuff that people don't have any value in because it's I'll just come up with some sort of spew and
So that's a good point. That's a great point. That's a great point. So when you walk up to that garage sale,
yeah,
what's the first thing you do? Because like for me, I look around to see the competition.
I'll tell you what happens. This is what
Right.
happens 90% of the time.
Okay.
And after 10 times, my laughter it must sound fake. So here's what it is. And I'm gonna wear
I already have my answer ready.
It's like, you looking for anything in particular? Do you have any antiques? Well, I'm an antique.
I'm an antique, yeah.
You are me?
Yes.
Every single time it's like, and I gotta laugh like I've never heard of it before.
It's like when you're working retail and there's no price on something. Is this free? Is this free? Yes, that's right. It's free. The price tag fell off. Is free.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, everyone thinks they're so unique. But
to them, it's funny because it's like, oh, I just thought of it, but
you want to have a rapport.
I
don't
can't
want to go in there all bitter.
I know, and I can't tell you how many times people say it. Honestly, I just try to be friendly and fun.
Yeah.
I'm not taking it serious to the point where I'm going to get angry about prices or anything. And I'm usually just right up front. Listen, I got an antique. I have a booth at the antique store in Waterford. I come out on Saturdays. It's a little side hobby, and I like to buy stuff. A lot of things sell there, so I look for bulk buys because so I can fill my booth up.
But when you first walk into that, like say they have a few tables out, right?
Yeah.
You're not going in saying, "Hey, I have an antique booth," right?
No. That's right? Only if they ask me what I'm looking for.
But, okay. So when they say, "Oh, because I get that question maybe 1 out of 5 times, someone asking stuff like that.
Yeah,
usually
I get
it's
that
good
quite
morning,
often. But honestly, it also depends on the table. So if I'm seeing all brand new kind of like junk, I'm just saying no. I'm just looking for certain items here. I don't see it here. Have a good day, and I quickly go back to the truck. I ain't got time for small talk. But if I see that, wow, they might have something interesting here. It kind of older. It looks like it's got dusty. It's been pulled out of a basement or a garage or something like that, and you just kind of get a vibe. In my opinion, I just kind of, once I hit that vibe, it doesn't mean that I'm always right or wrong. It's just, I mean, you're hitting so many houses, you just have to kind of go on instinct or gut feeling.
And sometimes you have to do the drive-by too, right? You kind of look out the window and say, okay,
100%.
Children's clothing, I see Walmart crap, or I see like they have 5 items on a table.
Yeah,
like they have nothing.
Yeah, so that happens a lot too. And if I go to a town where a lot of people are involved in the community yard sale, I will 100% do that.
You'll drive by. So rude.
I know.
Waiting there for you. What
they're looking at me, eh? But everybody's driving by, so it's not just me. But I'm not going to waste my time there. And I'm probably missing things, but again, it's kind of on your odds, right? So I don't want to keep stopping at places and wasting time by not finding anything.
I'm getting better at that myself. Like at first I felt bad and I would stop and look, but now it's just kind of I'll just keep driving. Or the other big warning one for me is a bunch of kids with all their toys, and all the kids are just like they're their lemonade stands and their cookies, and they just all staring at you, just waiting for you to stop your car.
Yeah,
I've become cold. I've become cold. 5 minutes, driving by.
5 minutes after you leave, they've totally forgot about you.
Yeah, I know. But right? At first it made me feel guilty, but I've kind of gotten over that because it was always just a waste of time.
Yeah.
And you're gonna walk away because they're like, are you gonna buy my lemonade?
Yes, I'm in a hurry. And Steph was sitting there chatting it up with the parents and the kids. Oh, my grandkid, and blah 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 blah.
And you're like, get in the car. Get in the car.
I'm like, I could have hit 4 yard sales at the time and struck gold, but now somebody else took my stuff. Like, I'm being a little bit sarcastic, but she's kind of understood that now, so she'll go directly to them while I go directly look at the stuff, so that we both kind of finished up. Because she's not.
That's interesting. So you're going together. Like I always I'm always lone wolf on this stuff.
I'm the lone wolf. So we go probably once a month together.
Oh, okay.
So not by rule. So sometimes she might go 2 or 3, and then she might not go for a month and a half. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I go out every Sunday. If she's got nothing to do and she feels like getting up early, she'll come along.
Fine. But I think another good one I like is kind of know what you're looking for. You did highlight that a little bit, but I think that makes a big difference for me too, because then I get overwhelmed really quick. But at least if I can say, okay, if they ask, especially, it's like, okay, I'm looking for cameras, I'm looking for vintage toys, but sometimes I don't even think of that stuff. I just kind of just wander around aimlessly and not quite sure what I'm looking for. Like I should be saying, oh, I'm looking for older stuff. I think that's a great tip as well that you mentioned.
Yeah, and you can kind of give them a list. Like, I'm looking for antiques, maybe some vintage toys or a camera or something like that. And you I have a spiel because of the antique store.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're looking for cameras, you just say, yeah, my son is collecting cameras, and I told him I'd find. Yeah, but they don't know that.
Oh, geez, dishonest Scotty coming out again.
Carl,
you're learning a lot about Scotty in this episode today.
Yes.
Where the line is and how he keeps going across it.
But you just say, or my nephew. So my nephew's collecting cameras. I told him that I'd be going out and looking if I see a camera, that I'd buy it for him, right? Because he's just collecting.
So what you never do is say I'm a reseller. Well, I guess you do. I guess if you're saying you're gonna have the antique booth, but
let me just rephrase that. That's only if you have to ask for that stuff. You don't have to give them a spiel, right?
No.
Most of the times I probably don't. But if they have the item there, I'm not going to explain it. You know what I mean? Oh, like if they kind of, I probably should say like, oh, what's it worth? Or why is the old cameras? Are they still good? Or like they're going to have questions, right? And you just kind of like, you know what? My nephew collects cameras, and I told him that if I saw something for a good price, a cheap price, I'd pick it up for him, right?
Okay. Yeah. And let's be honest. I don't know about you, Scotty, but
let's be honest. After telling how we're dishonest, is that?
Oh, hey, that's you. That's not me. Don't put that in my boat. What I was going to say is like when you're driving around, you see a lot of guys usually in pickup trucks. Not that there's wrong with that because they're hauling stuff, right?
Yeah.
They all have baseball caps and they're all running around. Everyone can point to a reseller from a mile away. We all look the same. We're all slightly grumpy. We
I'm
all
not
have our
grumpy
Jimmy.
at all. I got a big smile on my face.
A lot
I'm
of us are
Yard.
grumpy, but they can usually tell that we're a reseller, or they should know because we give off that vibe. At least that's what I notice when I drive around, because I see the same guy hitting like 5 or 6, and we all look exactly alike.
Well, and you put out a really good point. Like, there are a lot of resellers out there
Yeah,
that are you stereotype them correctly, but they are grumpy too, and they're kind of like
they are.
they're aggressive buyer. Like
Yeah,
that to me is like dumb. Like,
yeah.
I'm almost embarrassed to say that we're in the same profession, because I couldn't care if somebody wants $200,000 for a $5 camera. I don't care. I don't care. If you want to sell $100 camera for $100 and not $10, good for you. Go ahead. I don't care. I might laugh about certain situations where the guy says, "Well, let me look it on eBay and then I'll give you a price." But I've seen people
Yeah.
grab things that people are looking at and just take it, and like they're so aggressive. Like,
but like, what do you do when you ask the price and they say, "I don't know"? Like,
well, for what I say now is, what do you think it's worth? Well, I can't be both buyer and seller.
Right.
Like, it's your stuff. What do you want for it? Right?
I don't know.
Well, they'll say like, well, what are you willing to pay for it? And I say, how about $1? I'll start at $1.
So when I've done that,
yeah,
I remember I did that. Like, someone had a box of CB equipment, like a box full of it, and I said, "Well, how much do you want?" I don't know. And I said, "Well, how about $20 for the box?" They got upset.
Yeah,
I paid $200 just for that one piece. Blah blah blah. And it's just, that's the one thing I don't like about garage sales is when that happens. I think that's just part of the ball game. And in that case, I said, well, we were so far apart. Like, they wanted $200 and I wanted to give them 20. I said, okay, let me think about it. And I looked it up, and that stuff wasn't even worth $10, let alone the $200 they wanted.
Yeah.
Thankfully, that's an outlier though. Like, I must admit that experience doesn't happen. Usually what I do is, like, if they don't have a price in mind and they're umming and ahhing for too long, I try to think of how much I would pay in a thrift store and kind of give them that price or a little less. Like, so for a Walkman, right? If they say, I don't know how much. Well, in a Walkman, usually in a thrift store, is going to be like $5. So I might try to put the Walkman with a bunch of other stuff and give them $5, that sort of thing. Like, at least keep it in the same ballpark. Like, is that kind of how you might look at that? Like, as individual items, if you can't bulk buy?
Well, okay. So if it's an individual item, I will negotiate it, and if they're still demanding too high of a price, I mean, if I really want it but it's still too high, I might say, listen, I have an antique booth, and I'll give them the spiel. Right? I have an antique booth. I got to pay rent and commission.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that your price is bad. It's just I can't make money, and that's what I do. I try to go around as a little side hobby on Saturdays and make a couple of bucks, and there's nothing there. I could lose money, or by the time commission and rent comes off everything, there's nothing there. So I'll just give them, like, listen, say it's 20, and just say, like, I can give you $12. You know what I mean? Something like, whatever. So I'll do that if I'm bulk buying. Like, if they're like, I don't know, what do you think? Like, just, I'll try to be fair with them, and I'll try to break it down a little bit.
Yeah.
The condition's a little bit rough on that one. I don't know what this is really, but I'm and I'll just kind of like, I'll throw out a bit of a number thinking that they're going to come up. Cause a lot of times you'll say, hey, I'll give you $20 for this. How about 30? I'll take 30 and it's yours. So now you have to have that little bit of wiggle room. I mean, there's no real science to it. It's just kind of a gut feeling, people's personalities. Sometimes people just want to get rid of the stuff. And if you,
those are great, aren't they?
Yeah. So sometimes what I'll do, and probably a lot of times I'd have to really judge myself through this summer. It'll be interesting to find out, but I think a lot of times what I do is I'll just, hey, what are you looking for this one item? And I'll know based on what they're willing to sell that for, what their mentality is about.
Well, that's a good point.
You know, like and I know a lot of resellers watch this, and a lot of them do yard sales, and they're going to all say the exact same thing. Like, they all have their experiences, and they have their their go-to lines or all that kind of stuff. But I honestly think, and this is my opinion, and maybe
Yep.
I'm going to sound like a jerk, but we're kind of like professionals in a way.
Yeah.
So if you can do this for so long, you're almost at a high advantage over someone just having a regular yard sale, because you already know the tricks and the turns and the pivots, and how you're going to approach every little sentence, and you've read 200 million people already at yard sales. So this person, people you're going to put this person in a category, and this is how you're going to negotiate
with that personality type.
Yes.
So I think one other good tip is when you're negotiating, have a price in your head already before you ask.
Well, I think we all do, because I think at the same time, we kind of have an idea for the most part. Like, I don't,
and for me, I didn't. That was the one thing I've been working on, is having a price in my head first, because often, like, if, like, say there's that Walkman there and there's no price on it, I'm not really thinking about it until I ask. And then when they think about it, and then, like, say there's that Walkman there, not price, and they say, oh, $10, that's when all of a sudden I have to think, oh crap, they want $10. I was expecting less. What was I expecting? Often, like, I'm just talking about myself here, like, as someone who's not experienced in negotiation, is that I often don't have a price in my head first. And I think having that price in your head first, at least gives you a base. You might not reach that price, but at least you have somewhere you're willing to go, as opposed to just trying to do it on the fly. And for people like me who are not good at negotiating, it helps a lot.
And I don't look up hardly anything. Like, if
I'm not looking up stuff, I'm just talking about a price in my head.
Yeah, no, I have price. If I see video games, like, for instance, and I'm not talking about PS3s and newer, I'm talking about PS2s and older. You know what I mean? I'm talking about the vintage stuff, because I for the most part, I stopped dealing with the newer stuff. It just doesn't work for me. So, like, if I see video games, or I see a pressed steel toy from the 60s, like, I already have a number in my head that I think it's worth.
And that's experience. That's experience you're talking about there.
But I could be pleasantly surprised on the, like, okay, wow, that's a lot more than I thought.
Yeah.
Or, wow, that's not as much as I was hoping for. You know what I mean? So, but I would say for 90% of the time, I'm within the ballpark. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I'm talking about someone who's not very good at this stuff, who's not experienced with this stuff. Is sometimes, like, because you're talking about from experience from doing this for like 8 years.
School of Hard Knocks.
Sorry?
School of Hard Knocks. You know, you got to learn. You learn from your mistakes.
Yeah.
But,
yeah.
Well, it depends what you want to. Okay, so we're kind of talking a little bit about a different topic. Okay. If you're not experienced in knowing the price of the stuff, well, okay, you could look it up. But, if you want to get experience and you want to do older stuff, go to the antique stores. Go look at what people are pricing certain things for. Get an eye for what people are kind of selling. You know what I mean? Like when I first started, like, there's so much stuff out there that I had no idea when I first started, if I saw a spaghetti lamp, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you don't know if it's worth $5 or $500.
I would say that's the ugliest thing I've ever seen, and I'm not even going to touch it for $2.
No.
But now I'm going to buy it probably for $20, because I can sell it for $100.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, like, over time. But if you start, I watch Lonnie and Candace Shed Flips and Craigslist Hunter, and I watch some of the good. I used to watch Froggy Flips because he used to find some really good stuff. Now he's pivoted his channel, and I don't watch it so much more because it's not really my thing. But he used to find some good stuff, and so you can watch that kind of stuff and kind of give an idea. So you can do that, or you can go through an antique store, and you can kind of just you don't even have to memorize the prices. I'm not saying that, but you can kind of get an idea of what is popular, what looks good, what is people buying. and go to auctions. You don't even have to buy anything at auctions. Just see what people are willing to pay for some stuff. You know what I mean? It'll give you a good indication. That's how you kind of learn, and it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take years.
Happen when you get there. Like, I'll never forget. I can't remember what it was, but it was on your Sunday show, and you said you picked up some stuff at a garage sale, and you asked how much, and they said 10 cents. I can't remember the last time I've seen
it was a blow mold Santa Claus.
Mold. 10 cents.
10 cents.
Like, welcome to 1950s pricing.
Yeah, like 10 cents. I'm like, why even bother?
I know. It's like, it cost me 10 cents of gas just to start the car up.
Like, yeah, it was insane. But there was a lot of little things like the 25 cents. But it's funny how common that can be. The 10 cents was a little bit of
that was hilarious. That just got lodged into my brain.
Yeah. And I mean, basically, that's not, well, let me go find a dime. I'm going to walk along the sidewalk and try to find a dime to pay for that. But, no, it's, what was I going to say? It's, but 25, 50 cents, like, it still happens once in a while. But for the most part, it's probably like $1 to $5.
Yeah, that's usually what I find too. Sometimes you'll go and it's like everything is super high priced. I remember I went to one garage sale, it was all brand new stuff. And it's like they're trying to do a retail store. Those are the ones I usually bitch to Scott about in the morning, saying, I'm wasting my time. I saw 3 garage sales. There's a bunch of dolls clothing, and that was it. To be clear, I'm always working on this stuff too. I'm a little enthusiastic now after talking.
You call me at 9:00 because you've been out there for an hour and you found nothing. Done. And I'm like, hey, dude, my whole truck is completely full.
And I'm done, and I'm going back to bed.
Yeah, but my favorite one, and we said it on this channel, and definitely on the Sunday Live, was the you finally bought something.
Oh yeah,
I don't know if you want to tell that story.
So it's like, this is even near my house, like a block or two away. And it's like I go to the garage sale. It's a house, and they have one of those camera. I call them want to make a movie cameras, the ones with like a little handle on the side you turn.
Yeah.
And so how much? And she says, I think $10 or something like that. And I'm odd because it's only worth like maybe $60, and they're not. You think, 10 to 60, but it requires a bit of work. It's not nothing. So I gave the $10, and I'm going to my car, and then all of a sudden this other woman starts yelling, coming after me, saying, "Give that back! Give that back! I can get $68 for that on eBay." And it's like, dude, I just I barely paid you $10. And so I take it back. I felt so bad though, because it was like her sister or something, and she's shaking the person who sold it to me as they give her back the item, and they give me back my $10 because she was so in shock of the whole thing. But yes, I did get chased down to return something because I bought it too cheap at a garage sale. It did not exactly inspire my garage sale purchasing in the future, at least with a thrift store. I just had to deal with the other competition. I don't have to deal with the nasty sellers, but every experience like that, but there's been so many great ones too, where people have just given me stuff for free when I've gone, and they say, "Oh, just take this, this, and this, and this," and it's been great. So I guess another question is, do you give your business card like ever out, or
100%? I do. It's not really a business card. It's more of just like, it says, like it'll say Scott and Steph on it, and we buy and sell.
Yeah.
And it'll have our phone number on it. And we just kind of give that out.
Do you ever get calls on that card?
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Okay, good. Because I've given out mine and never gotten anything out of it, but
I wouldn't say every time you hand out a card you're gonna get a call.
No, I've had 0 out of 10.
Every 10 to 20 you might get a call.
Right.
But it's not like I'm handing a lot of them out either. Like, honestly, when I yard sale mode, I am quick. Like,
yeah.
Right. Like, I can be there, buy something, and back to the truck, and stuff's just getting out of the truck. Like, I don't mess around. Like, this is
okay.
Yeah, I mean, right. Like, I guess right now it's the livelihood. It's part of my
That's how you make your money. Yeah.
That's how I make my money, right? So I have to be the first one there. I'm totally not aggressive, and I will never, ever argue. If somebody wants too high of a price, a lot of times I don't even have time to negotiate a little bit lower. Like, it has to be something special, or there's got to be a big pile of stuff, right? So, like like everything is so different, and if they're way too high and we're just too far apart, like I'm not going to sit there and negotiate on it because it's just not worth it, right? Like if it's worth
Yeah.
$50 and they want 30, like what am I going to go to 20? It's still not really worth it at that
Yeah.
point, because by the time I deal with it, I might be making $10.
And the
You know what
thing
I
I
mean?
find at garage sales too is often stuff is damaged. And that's why it's not like they're doing it on purpose. They just like it was damaged a long time ago. They put it in the garage and kind of forgot about it. And then they put it out there and it's missing pieces. Like I find that happens a lot in garage sales. Not
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
not doing it on purpose, but it's just they don't
It's not,
notice
yeah, it's
notice
not
it.
in purpose. I try to check it over. I mean, every now and then I get burned on something, but I
Yeah.
don't have enough into it, or I've made up because it was part of a larger buy where it's not that big of a concern. If it was like, I mean, it's annoying, and I like to kind of reduce that kind of stuff, but it's not hurt me financially by any means by doing that kind of stuff, right? I
Yeah.
my goal this summer, and
Yeah.
it's happened a lot, but my goal this summer is, if the stuff is good outside, I'm going to try to talk my way into the house, or like not so much into the house, but even for them to bring stuff out. But what I mean is stuff that's not out, I'm going to try harder to be part of buying that kind of stuff that they wanted to get rid of, but they haven't brought it out, right? They're not sure of the value, you know what I mean, but they know
Well,
it's old.
that's what I wonder about. Like it because it's awkward, right? Like you go up there and you're like, my plan is, and I'm not saying I'm going to do this, this is what I'm going to try and do, is if I'm going to buy something, I'm going to give my card at the same time saying, hey, if you have any collections that you didn't put out or things you want to sell and you want, you're interested in getting rid of, I'm interested in that sort of stuff too. So if you want to, you can contact me and I'll come back. And kind of like if I'm buying something, because then you're already having that discussion there. I guess you play it by ear on that.
Yeah, so and this is, I mean, like I said before, everything you're feeling out and you're
Yeah.
classifying your seller and categorizing. So I'm not going to negotiate too hard. If I think there's other stuff there, I
Yeah.
want them to feel like I've paid the proper amount,
That's
right?
smart.
So you have to really kind of gauge it on all sorts of things too.
Yeah.
So, and if they do invite me to their house or they're not sure of something, I'm going to be more fair than I would be on a yard sale. Because if you're at a yard sale, it is what it is. So you're just kind of paying, a yard sale price. That's what people are expecting. But if
Yeah.
you're being invited to someone's house, or
Yeah.
you're kind of building that rapport where you might get called back later on, pay up a little bit. Like
Yeah.
you're not going to pay retail price. Like nobody's
No.
going to do
No.
that. But
For example, if something's worth $50 at the garage sale, you might pay what, 5 to 10 for it if there's a little work.
or $1, yeah.
Well, you want to pay as little as possible, but you will pay up to $5 at least if it's worth 50, right?
If I'm being invited into the house or the
I
loft
think-
or the garage type thing or basement, it's probably because I'm going to end up buying a ton of stuff.
Right.
I'm going to be buying a lot, so I'm looking at it as a lot. So this
Right.
lot that I just bought, so I paid $750, but take the one picture away that I kind of felt like I needed to buy because he was being so good to me, and he was kind of like, I can't go lower than $100 on this painting. It was nice old painting, but normally I wouldn't even go near that, right? So if you take that away, I paid $650 for a bunch of stuff. You get everything on this table, whatever you
Right.
want on this table. I said, how much for everything? If I was to take all this stuff away because he needed it gone, I said, if I take all this stuff, like, and we negotiated a price, $650. In my mind, I got two items, maybe even 1.5 items, paying for everything, and everything else is profit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'll break it down even in more. And honestly, I paid more than what he was asking.
Mm.
Like I think if you kind of, basically it was probably like $100. Right? Like he's like this and this and this and this table. He goes, we're looking at about 350 or whatever. So I paid him more there. He had some crates that he's looking to get rid of. I think I give him an extra $10 on that because there was one crate in there. I said, I know this is pretty good and I'll have a buyer right off the bat. So, and then we went to the other thing, and I think by the end of it, I ended up paying him $100 more than what he was even asking.
And you might get.
Sorry, Carl, I don't want to, but
yeah.
I've also had experience buying off this guy in the past, and I made he had a bunch of miniature stuff, $20 for the whole box. You know that story. I've sold a lot of those little miniatures for over $100. Yeah. When I saw him at a yard sale, I'm like, hey, buddy, I did really good on that box. And I give him an extra $100 there. I just want to say thanks. I did really good. That invited me back to this other pick, which I give him a little bit extra on top of what he was asking. And he's going to call me back again, right? And he gets inundated. I won't go into why, but he does get a lot of this kind of stuff. But we're getting into overtime here.
Already? Wow. Okay.
I know, it's crazy, eh? So why don't we kind of put this as part one, and we'll do a part two for next week. And what do you, is there more you want to talk about, first of all?
Oh, I think we could still talk about this. Like, it's great hearing from your experience, but I think it's helpful for people who aren't as good at this or as experienced hearing from my questions and how I deal with things. And I think we have a bit more to talk about. We don't want to make this so long that no one actually listens to the end.
and we could also talk about some of our experiences, because I was going to get into some of the experiences because I think you learn from your experiences, and they're kind of interesting. They're almost like little short stories sometimes, because it's just phenomenal. Like, I guess one thing that is predictable of people is that they're not predictable.
No,
you know what I mean? So there's some really funny characters out there as well.
Oh my God. And that's one of the fun things about garage sales is you never know what you're going to get when you roll up. Yeah. So we'll be back next week and for exciting part 2. And we hope you join us. So what should our viewers do, Scotty?
Well, they should hit the like button, subscribe, and tell a friend, but also leave a comment. And you know what? Leave a comment of some of the experiences. I don't care if you want to leave 2, 3, 4 experiences. Yeah. Maybe we'll bring in some of those experiences. And I know we have a comment from Randy that I meant to answer this week, but we're going to put that into next week because this just went crazy in overtime. So we're going to have to split this up. Yeah. But leave us some comments. Randy as well. Chop. You guys have left a lot of comments, and just give us some experiences and maybe even some tips, and we'll throw those into next week's show as well.
Sounds good, Scotty. So I wish everyone a great week, and we'll see you later.
All right. Have a good one, Carl, and everyone else. And 10 a.m. every Friday, Spotify or YouTube is when this show goes.
Awesome. Bye, everyone.
Bye.